Hello and welcome to the Art of Communication podcast with me, Robin Kermode. Have you ever wished you could become a confident speaker or presenter? Then why not join my online masterclass, Speak So Your Audience Will Listen. In 10 easy-to-follow modules, you can become a confident and authentic speaker. For more information, visit robinkermode.com.
Hello, it's Sian Hansen here with Robin Kermode.
Hello.
And this podcast is about the power of thank you and how important it is to say thank you.
Always say thank you.
Always. Do you think it's always?
Every single time.
Really? Is it about gratitude then?
It's about gratitude and making somebody feel that their action or their words have been heard. And you're saying, I appreciate what you've done for me and thank you.
Yeah, I think gratitude is actually really important. You can thank yourself because, you're supposed to say what you're really grateful for at the end of every day.
Or in the start of the day, actually. There's a great thing that I used to do. I have to say I don't do it now as much as I should do. But I think waking up in the morning and before you get out of bed, just saying, and I used to do this genuinely probably 5 years ago every day, was I'd lie there in bed as you first wake up and you say 3 things that I'm grateful for. And you say, thank you for my health, thank you for my marriage, thank you for my food or your work or whatever. And I think just starting the day with a sense of personal gratitude and thank you is also helpful.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's great. So you're saying thank you right out front at the beginning of your day. Yeah, I think it's really important. And you mentioned something there about the appreciation too. It is about the appreciation because somebody's made an effort for you. They've done something for you and they've really made an effort. And we're all so busy, it's taken some time and effort.
It has. And sometimes it's transactional. So sometimes, of course, you're paying somebody to do something for you. So a waiter will bring you food. You can still say thank you for doing it. I mean, they can do it in a nice way, even if you're paying them to do it.
So you're saying we should do it all the time, no matter how big or small.
Yes. And also, no matter whether we're in a good mood or a bad mood, because often we do it when we're in a good mood.
Oh, and if you're in a bit of a grump,
sometimes
you might forget to say thank you.
You forget to do it, you can't be bothered, you're a bit angry with the world, whatever. But actually, those are the days probably we should say thank you more.
Yeah, like you say it with your mantra in the morning, it probably puts you in a better frame of mind if you say thank you for something and you pause for a moment and appreciate somebody else.
Yes, and I think in other podcasts we have talked about this. I had a friend who said he could never turn a bad day around. He said, on a good day, life is fine and the bus arrives on time and everything's great and life is good. But on the days when nothing quite works, he said, I don't seem to be able to turn it around. And I said, but those are the days that when that happens, if it happens to me, we all have bad days. When you have a bad day, you just reach out to somebody else. You smile at someone on the street and suddenly they smile back and you go, oh, that's all right. And I think the same thing can be true of saying thank you. It's a mindset of being gratitude.
It's a mindset, actually. And interesting, just bringing in AI here, all those apps that you can use now to help you, the AI apps, I've been taught when I'm interacting with them that I should always say thank you to them, even though it's a machine. Even though it's a machine, right. It's machine learning.
Yes.
They're learning that please and thank you
is important.
Yep. And if I say thank you, the machine is learning that humans show gratitude. And I would say thank you at the end of mine.
Yes, but it's a good habit anyway. Yeah.
So just deepening that conversation a little bit, we're talking about when and should and everything, but I think it's just basically polite.
Well, it is. And I was thinking, when do we learn these things? When do we learn to say thank you? And I suppose it's parenting, really, isn't it? And we learn it within society. Cultures, of course, vary, don't they? The amount of times they say thank you. I think maybe in the UK, we might be accused of being a little bit over thank you and a bit over apologetic.
Yeah, you do say thank you a lot.
So I think sometimes we can say thank you once and mean it rather than thank you 100 times and not mean it.
Yeah, fair. I think that's fair. Yeah. Interesting you said it's parenting. It might even be grandparenting, actually, or it might be an older mentor or something like that. Because in a busy life with busy parents and young kids and whatever, it might be hard to just keep doing it. You might learn it at school, actually. Did you learn to write thank you letters at school?
We had to write thank you letters from school, but we were taught if it was a thank you letter, say, for a birthday present, that sort of thing, we would write...
handwriting here. You get a card.
Properly handwritten. We'll come on to handwriting later, but yes, but handwritten. And we were taught not to use the word thank you in the card.
What, don't write thank you?
No, you don't actually write thank you. That's the obvious thing to do.
Okay.
Which is, dear Auntie Jane, thank you for the lovely socks.
Yeah.
Is the obvious thing to do.
Okay.
But much nicer, dear Auntie Jane, I love the socks. It's an unusual colour. Maybe you hate that. It's no, it's a what would you say? It's
a bold choice.
It's a bold choice. It's a confident colour, which is an English way of going, not quite sure I like it. So much nicer. Dear Auntie Jane, I love the socks. They're the most comfortable socks I ever had. I hope to see you soon.
Yes.
It's much better than saying thank you for the socks. It's less obvious.
That is really interesting.
But you are still saying thank you.
You are still saying thank you. So we'll get on to that. But there's many ways of saying thank you,
Many
clearly.
ways, yes.
In English, anyway.
You can say cheers. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're a lifesaver. I mean, there's lots of phrases that come up.
Well, there's a lot of phrases. And there's thanks. I've never liked that. Thanks.
Well, that can sound a bit...
Throwaway.
Yes, it doesn't sound like you mean it, really.
Yeah. And I like thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I was going to come on to thank you very much, because when you make speeches, if you want to get a round of applause at the end of a speech, most people, what they do is, if I'm helping them write their speech, they write the speech, and then I said, okay, you get to the end, and the audience have to know now you finished. So you have to in some way tell them that you finished. And one of the simple ways is to say thank you. So they say, that's the end of my speech. Thank you. And you're saying to the audience, the curtain has come down, the speech is finished, now you can applaud if you want to. But interestingly enough, the rhythm of thank you doesn't work. But the rhythm of thank you very much does.
Oh, it does.
So if you finish your speech, and that's why I love my brother, thank you. You don't really want to clap, and that's why I love my brother. Thank you very much. And everyone starts clapping. It's like Pavlov's dogs. I think thank you very much is more heartfelt than thank you.
So it might be the same in lyrics in a song, because I can hear what you're saying. It's much more lyrical to say thank you very much.
Well, there's a rhythm.
There's a rhythm to it. And there's this song, where is it? Thank you for being a friend.
Yes.
Yeah. So it might be just more lyrical to do that. But then, of course, there's also the formal things. Someone said to me the other day, I'm much obliged.
It's a slightly old-fashioned term now, but it still works.
Or people can say to you, I couldn't have done it without you, or really appreciate your support. We know what's behind it, don't we?
We know what's behind it. I had one once where somebody said, I have to give credit where credit is due.
Oh, no, that's backhanded.
I thought that was a bit a double entendre on that, because if they were saying, you really helped me, Robin, that was great, that's really clean, isn't it? But I have to give credit. It's like, you have to, or you want to. It's interesting.
No, I think the have to does it. In my childhood, I remember saying thanks a bunch, thanks a million.
Yeah, thanks a ton.
Thanks a ton.
North Americans than here.
Thanks a ton. I suppose even you're the best, was written on a card quite a lot. So, yeah, it can be, in many different ways. So if you don't actually hear the words thank you, don't think you haven't got a thank you, if you see what I mean.
Yes. But then again, it comes back to many things we've talked about on these other podcast episodes, is about intention. So if somebody's intention is actually to say thank you by saying you're the best, and they mean you're the best, and I'm saying thank you for being the best, then that's what we hear. But if their intention is something different, we don't hear it.
Yeah. And actually, good to point out the nuance, because every once in a while, a thank you can be slightly backhanded. The reason I say this is sometimes they can say it sarcastically. Oh, well, thank you.
No.
And that doesn't...
Can I just say, we've all done it.
Yeah.
We've all done it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean thank you, does it?
No, it doesn't. No,
that means you can hit the high road.
It's reluctantly I'm saying thank you because I have to.
Yeah, or you're forced to say thank you. Have you ever been forced to say thank you? Is there ever a time where...
I've been forced to say sorry.
No, I know.
Let's not go into that now.
I know that. But have you ever been forced to say thank you when you really didn't like it? Like, did your parents ever say you had to eat the apple crumble? I know he doesn't like apple crumble. And you had to say thank you, even though you hated every mouthful.
Well, do you know the awful thing is, I'm of the generation where there was still caning at school.
Oh, no. Robin.
Yes.
No.
Yes. And you had to thank the headmaster
for
caning you. You did?
No.
You had to shake. No. So they would cane you. You then had to shake the headmaster's hand and say thank you.
Oh, I'm so shocked.
And it's shocking, isn't it?
That is so shocking.
And also, what's extraordinary is that happened within my lifetime. I think that stopped. I'm not sure of the exact date, but I think it was even as late as the late 60s, early 70s.
Wow, to be forced to say thank you in that circumstance, my mind is actually just can't compute.
I know, it's extraordinary, isn't it? And luckily those days have long since passed. I mean, generally, I do like saying thank you, as you do, I know, but maybe not in those circumstances. But Sian, I mean, I know you're very good at saying thank you, but what about your friends?
When I talk to my friends about this, and I say, how do you feel about thank you? And do you think people say it enough? They get all upset. And they say, people don't say thank you enough anymore.
Well, yeah, but is that a generational thing?
I don't know. Or is it a cultural thing? Has something happened? Like, I don't know, everybody likes to blame social media, but is there some reason that we don't say thank you as much anymore, or we say thank you in a different way.
We say thank you in a different way.
That's not valued.
Well, maybe it's valued by the person saying thank you, but not by the receiver. I was brought up to write thank you cards and to handwrite thank you cards, and many of our listeners will be exactly the same. And so you have maybe a Christmas present or a birthday present or whatever the present is, and then you have to make a list of who gave you the presents, maybe your 5 presents, and then you had to write 5 cards to the 5 people who gave you the presents, your aunt for the socks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You were taught to do that probably from quite an early age. And if we're taken out for dinner with somebody at their house, we would always write a handwritten card.
Yes.
The next, and this is, I think, also important, the next day.
Oh, no, it's within 2 weeks. I was taught within 2 weeks.
Well, you see, I think it should be done the next day.
Right, okay.
But that's just a personal thing, but you know me in my inbox. So I try and do it the next day, but I handwrite it, and then we both sign it and we send it off. But there's something around the handwriting on the card that I think is more heartfelt than a text. But if you ask younger people, they will say, but I sent a text, what's the problem? And it was a really heartfelt text.
Yeah, full of emojis.
Full of emojis, you know. The other way, of course, you can leave a voicemail on WhatsApp and all these other apps. So I tend to do that. If for some reason I can't get a card in the post or I'm traveling or whatever, I will probably leave a voicemail on the app. And it would be me saying, with my nuance of my voice, saying, that was a really great evening and what wonderful people we sat
so
next to.
So it has more meaning.
So it has more meaning than just a text going, thanks for dinner last night.
No, that seems right.
But this is all about nuance, really, isn't it?
What about email?
Oh, that's a bit businessy.
I think it's a bit businessy, isn't it?
But in a corporate way, you can.
Oh, yes. Okay. So if we move to a corporate environment, an email is perfectly fine. It would be very strange, actually, to have a typed letter in the post to say thank you.
Although I often handwrite to clients.
Do you?
Yes, to say thank you, particularly if they've introduced me to somebody.
Good
so
point.
Maybe I have a client and they've recommended me to another potential client, and then they become a client of mine. I would write to the first one, probably a handwritten letter, and maybe even send them a box of chocolates or something or whatever, or send them a book maybe that they might enjoy.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. I mean, if somebody introduces me to somebody who turns out to be very helpful or I learn something from or whatever, I will definitely write to the person who made the introduction and say thank you and not leave them in limbo about whether I even picked it up and ran with it. I think that's very impolite if you go to the effort of introducing somebody in your network.
And also sharing your network, I agree. So what I do is I probably write a handwritten card or maybe phone them to say thank you, and then I will follow it up with an email, probably once I've started working with them. In other words, thank you for the introduction. And then once they've turned into a client, I then say, by the way, it has turned into a client. Thank you very much.
And you did say earlier that maybe the English overthink. But actually, what you're talking about just sounds polite.
It's only 2 thank yous. They're 2 different thank yous. One is an email and one is a handwritten or a voicemail. But I've never had anyone look at me as if, well, you're going a bit over the top with your thank yous. I think people like being told thank you. Like waiters in restaurants. I always say thank you to somebody bring off it. Why would you not?
Actually, you can really judge somebody's character. I think you can really judge someone's character if they're not polite to the waiting staff. You're a member of one of these actor clubs in London, and you read to me once the rules.
Oh, yeah. The club rules.
Yeah, what were the club rules?
These were questions sometimes asked by new members. And one of the questions was, how should we treat the staff? And I think what was behind that was about tipping, actually. But anyway, the question was, how do we treat staff? And their answer was, better than your friends.
Oh. Perfect.
And it's absolutely right.
Absolutely perfect.
Absolutely right.
Absolutely perfect.
I had a client during lockdown who hired a new CFO online, and the person got the job. After lockdown, they were able to go out for dinner, and he realized that over the dinner, the man he'd hired as a CFO was rude to the waiting staff. And he said, I never would have hired him if I'd been able to meet him in person before.
Because he didn't say thank you.
He didn't say thank you. And so you can't always tell on a video call whether somebody has that mindset of saying thank you, but you certainly see it when they're in person.
Well, you see, in our culture anyway, it's a social norm. There's an expectation that you say thank you. And if you don't, in the smallest and the biggest situations, it can lead to a misunderstanding, and it can lead to, well, somebody can think you're rude.
Absolutely. I was on the tube in London the other day and somebody offered me their seat. Now, we laugh because I'm thinking, yes, but I know my age, but I'm hoping I don't look my age. And therefore I'm thinking, how dare you offer me a seat? I'm not, But actually, of course, somebody's being very kind and saying, would you like a seat? The only thing to do is to say, that's very kind of you, thank you.
Well, that brings up another point, because when When do you say thank you? Okay, we were talking about the obvious things like an introduction, or somebody's taking you out for lunch, or
a present, or whatever. Yes.
Or somebody's done something nice for you. But I also think you can say thank you when someone asks for your advice.
One of the nicest letters I have is from my grandfather, who I, as you know, I adored, and he wrote his biography for the family. Really, it wasn't ever to be published, but he did it for the family. His story of his life thing. It's just often people do when they get elderly, and it was lovely to do. But I helped him record it, so he made some notes, and then we recorded the whole thing. So we now have his voice on tape, and it's now digital. When we finished it, he sent me the nicest handwritten card, saying, "Thank you for your help. Thank you for wanting to do this with me." Because I encouraged him to do it in a way. So he's saying, "Thank you for encouraging me to do this."
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have done it without you. And it made me feel really special.
No, that's really lovely. That is so lovely, Robin. I do it when people are always asking me advice about career, getting on the job ladder.
And you're very good, Sian, at mentoring.
No.
Particularly young women, actually. You're brilliant at it.
Well, that's kind of you to say. But what it was really is I feel so honoured when a young person comes to me and says, "Can you give me some advice about this?" And I say, "Oh, well, thank you for thinking of me. I'll do my best." Because you're put in a position where you hope you can help.
Yes.
Especially because, it's hard. It's hard making your way.
It does. But it's also flattering, isn't it? The fact that a young person comes to you and says, "Can you help me?" They could have gone to a million people, but they asked you. And we should say, "Thank you for your confidence in me."
I think so. Okay, so when are the other times when you say, like, if you're in a position of leadership, what would you say are the circumstances under which you say thank you?
I was working with this CEO, and she came off the platform, and one of her team came up to her and said, "That was really, really good." And she said, "Was it okay? And I should have done this and I should have done that." And afterwards I said, "You should just say thank you, really.
Just say thank you,
just
no
say
but.
Thank you. No buts, no apology."
Robin, are there only certain times, certain instances when you're a leader where you say thank you?
I think one of the things I've learnt most from watching really good CEOs is they make their appreciation known and felt when it's unexpected.
Oh, really?
So not the obvious times.
Have you got an example?
Well, it's very easy. For example, you get a contract signed, and in the old days, everyone would get sent a pen or there'd be some sort of celebration. But actually, sometimes working on a long project, I had a client, she was working on a long project, and every few months she made a point of varying it, writing a handwritten card, sending it to their home saying, "I know you're working long hours, but I really appreciate it." Little things like that.
Yeah.
So it's unexpected that your boss will send you a handwritten letter to your home. What they tend to do is say, "Here's a quick email," they dash off and go, "Appreciate your hard work." And you think, you don't really appreciate it. She would do that. She would unexpectedly take people out, realizing that actually there's a bit of tension building, and you can alleviate that tension on the unexpected times, and it has more power in effect on unexpected times.
Do you know, I never thought about that. A surprise thank you might have more weight and meaning where you didn't think you were going to get one.
But again, that's the same in life, isn't it? A surprise compliment from somebody. It's not something like a colleague says to you, "Do you know what? I've always thought you were good at that." You think, "Really? I never knew that." And how good does that make you feel for the rest of the day?
You probably go home and tell your friends and family.
It's a bit like, I'm sure if you meet a famous movie star on the street and you say, "I love your films, they're wonderful." There's only one thing for the star to do, is to say, "It's very kind, thank you."
Yes, I
don't
totally
overanalyze
agree.
it. You just say thank you.
I totally agree. And if you're a young woman and someone approaches you and says, "You look really well today, you look really happy," or "Love what you're wearing," you just say thank you.
Yes.
You just say thank you, accept the compliment.
Because actually sometimes it's quite difficult to give a compliment. People feel embarrassed to give a compliment. So make it easy for them and just say thank you.
Now, Robin, you just said when someone gives you advice or help, but I just want to throw a twister in here. Because let's say I'm at the gym or something and somebody gives me unsolicited advice that I didn't want.
Oh, so another person in the gym who's not a trainer or anything?
No, like you should use this equipment differently, or don't you ever get unsolicited advice? Unsolicited
Not
help.
very often, actually, but I can see how it can happen
So
easily.
do you say thank you?
Well, the temptation would be to say thank you sarcastically.
Mind your own
wouldn't it?
business. Actually, I've changed it in my head. And I've said to myself in my head, they're just trying to be kind. So I just say thank you very much for your advice. And I do it this way for a reason, but thank you.
Yeah, but even then, should you have to justify why you're doing it for that
No,
reason?
I
You
know.
shouldn't really.
I know.
We should just say, "Oh, that's interesting, thank you." Yes, I'll think about that for next time.
I'll just carry on. And I'm also, it may be pushing it a bit, but I often say thank you instead of apologizing. Let's say I've kept somebody waiting and I say, "Oh, I'm really sorry I'm late." or I'm really sorry I'm late in responding to your email. And then I'll say instead, thanks for your patience, which says the same thing.
Yes, but it's a nicer way of saying it, actually, isn't it?
Well, I think so.
Yes.
But I apologize too much. So I'm trying to stop myself apologizing all the time.
I mean, I have a thing about lateness, as you know. And so I think if you've arranged to meet somebody at 10 o'clock for a coffee and you turn up at 10:30, you've actually kept them waiting. You've wasted half an hour of their day, in a way. But again, you could turn up and say, thank you so much for waiting. I apologize for being late. But you can include the thank you in that.
Okay. So, just wrapping this all up, Robin, we've talked a lot about the importance of gratitude. It's polite. It's a social norm. I think it's really important that you talked about the difference between email, letter, text, phone calls, voicemails, the circumstances under which we feel gratitude and we want to say thank you. But is there some way you can wrap it all up, like in one thought piece that we can just go away with, particularly as it relates to communication?
If we think of saying thank you and all that entails, if we think of that as being the oil in an engine, if you have that right oil in an engine, the metal parts don't rub, everything goes smoothly. Communication goes more smoothly if we listen to people and if we say thank you.
Yeah.
Those are the two really big things about
things,
communication. There's obviously clarity and all sorts of other things involved. But essentially, if we listen to other people, make them feel special, and say thank you, making them feel special, think of saying thank you as a habit and think of it as just oiling the engine of communication.
Robin, thank you so much. I never want our podcast to end because I'm always learning so much from you. Even though we've known each other for decades, I'm still learning so much.
I learn a lot, interesting enough, by saying it out loud. It's not that I necessarily know that, because I don't have all the answers either, like nobody does. But I think sometimes by discussing things, you clarify in your own mind what's important.
So, a very heartfelt thank you.
Well, I'm going to say thank you very much. Have you ever wished you could become a confident speaker or presenter? Then why not join my online masterclass, Speak So Your Audience Will Listen. In 10 easy-to-follow modules, you can become a confident and authentic speaker. For more information, visit robinkermode.com.